pizzas land. Ding, 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 ding. And when it's really slammed, so it'll have two conveyor belts, so one above, one below, and there'll be two pans stacked, two, coming out nonstop for like 4 hours. And so it's just a madhouse in there, and you're just swinging and trying your best not to, grab your arm on these 500 and something degree pans that will just pull your skin right off. And we're in there, and one of the dudes like catched an attitude with me or something. Like, I forgot what he was mad about, and he just like got in my face about it, and I was just like, I just couldn't see the relevancy because I was so stressed out trying to get everything done, and I just snapped at him, and he burned me with one of the pans, and I just grabbed another pan and raised it up, and I was just about to swing it, and our manager comes running in, and she's like, "Hey!" And everybody in the store stops, and I've got this pan in the air. And she pulls this blunt out of her bra, and she hands it to the other dude. She goes, "Go smoke half, bring it back in. He'll smoke the other half, and y'all chill out." And so he did. He pissed off. He went and he smoked. He came back, and he was moving way slower when he came back because we were like 15 at the time. Like, we didn't have a tolerance. And I was looking at him, and he had way higher tolerance than I did, and he was like toasted. Like, he came in practically hugging me. I was like, I don't know if I should smoke the entire other half of that. I'll think about it. So I walked to the back, and it's just that grungy back of the outlet mall, concrete area that smells faintly of something you don't like, but you can't name what it is. Just sour. And I light up, and I was like, yeah, I hope I don't get to... Man, next thing I know, boss comes out. It's been like 3 hours. I only smoked like 4 hits, and the rest of it's just sitting there, and I'm just completely gone. And she's like, well, at least y'all aren't fighting. So that one was, it was like kind of going through the fire, through the flames sort of deal. It was like testing patience through intense heat, literally. Which I gotta say was a heck of an experience. Then I decided I was gonna do the polar opposite, pun intended, and went and worked at an ice cream shop. Marble Slab, to be specific. And I loved working at the ice cream shop because I worked with my friend Kale, who him and I were like, I don't know, if reincarnation's real, him and I were like mischievous gods in a past life or something, because we just stirred so much shit. It was ridiculous. And we had this game that we started up for a while where we would fit words that were either really gross or wrong or really like curse words inside of the ice cream word and say it really fast so you didn't hear it. And we got away with it for so long, and then he just ruined it. As Smeagol would say, he ruins it. He did, though. So to give you some examples, like double dark chocolate was double dick chocolate. Blueberry was blue bitch. There was some other ones of other varieties, and so one day this old lady came in, and I don't know what possessed him, but this was glorious to watch. This old lady comes up and orders, and she's like, "Can I get the cotton candy?" And he looks her dead in the eye and says, "You mean cotton cunt?" And everyone in the entire building froze. And I was just like, that was too obvious. And so that game ended right then and there. And then there's so we had this policy where if you were in the store at 9:59 and it turned 10, we couldn't tell you to leave even though we were closed. I didn't like this rule. I didn't like any rules, but I especially did not like this rule because it meant less Adult Swim or Cartoon Network or anything else other than linoleum and fluorescent lights and crappy radio. So, there was a there was a day where this family came in. And they came in at 9:57. It was like within 5 minutes. I can't remember exactly. It was like mom, dad, like 3 kids, all about the same age. I was like, whoa. And we all look at each other. We do that look, like, But you've done this before. This has happened. This is not new. This is a part of your life. So you just turn. You're like, all right, what can we get for you? You try to be jolly, because if you start off with a bad attitude, then it's kind of your fault. But if you put your best foot forward and then they're mean, then I personally feel justified to just be as mean as humanly possible. That's me. So I have a system. And so they order, and by the time we finish making their food, it's like well past 10. And I give it to them in to-go containers. And I don't say anything, I don't tell them what to do, but I'm kind of insinuating, like, hey. And they're like, oh, y'all close at 10? We're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they go and sit down, pull the to-go containers out of their bags, and start eating their ice cream. Now, I go and talk with the manager. And the manager is very by the rules and was like, no, we have to stay open. We can't harass them or tell them to leave. I was like, for how long? And she's like, up to like an hour or something. I forgot, something ridiculous. And I was like, no. And so after some amount of time, I think she went somewhere. I forgot. But she wasn't in the building. And then I went to the PA system and played Blink 182's I Wanna Bleep a Dog in the Bleep and put it on full blast. They left, but before they left, they requested the manager's cell phone number to let him know what horrible thing had transpired in their store that day. So I gave them my number. And then when they called, I told them I would fire me. So I did. And I eventually left Marble Slab. Up next, one of my personal favorites, and probably the most emotionally invested I ever got into a food industry job, was working for Subway. Interestingly enough, I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, the combination of movements required to, do your job on a daily basis at Subway just so happened to land in a very Zen-like manner for my brain. So I really enjoyed working there because all of the timers and the portions and everything just made sense to me. And so it was like, yeah, I had done all these other food jobs that, I could figure out, but I just kind of felt like I was going through the motions at them. I didn't feel like I was really engaged. And this was the first time I felt like I engaged with the job. And it was interesting because in a town like Mobile, when you work at a food place, and the location I was working at was a in-between spots. So people from both sides of either the state or the county or city or wherever, this is a crossover area. It's a very well-known area. And so a lot of people in transit stop in, and they're usually high energy because they're traveling or like, about to go home, about to go to work. And so you get a lot of fun characters in there, and it was really fun getting to know people because I made it a point to ask people legitimately how their day was and like dig in if they wanted to like talk more. I'm like, yeah, man, pair it up. And if nobody's in the store, I'm like, you can talk for as long as you want. And I remember it was so beautiful. I'm so glad I remember this. There was this old couple that came in on like a Sunday morning, which nobody came in Sunday morning to Subway. They're not like, honey, we've got to get to Subway. It's Sunday. It was more like, it's Sunday. I'm at Waffle House or something like that. And so I was working as this old couple came in, and they seemed so sweet and loving and just so chill. And I just remember being like, you know what? I'm going to give them just like the best service possible. Like, I'm just going to treat them like royalty because like there's no one else here. I've already had my caffeine and Adderall for the morning. Like, I'm wired for sound. I've cleaned the store 4 times. Like, everything's prepped. Everything's perfect. Like, yeah, why not? And so I told them, I was like, whatever y'all want, I will come bring it to you. I'll come do this. I was like, y'all stay right there and just have a great time. And we chatted. I let them have their time. We chatted. And then right before they left, the husband came up to me and said something that resonated with me. And this was my first spike in relative consciousness towards another person, as far as being aware of a real effect you can have on another person. And this person of a very, very advanced and wise age of much experience comes over, looks me in the eyes, and says, I haven't had service like that since the 80s. You have given me and my wife a beautiful morning. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Have a good day. And they left. And from that moment on, I was like, well, I like how that felt. This like this comment that takes your breath away, that halts you. And when that happened, it only pushed me in a direction to want to be more sincere, because I liked not only how that felt, but seeing that come out of another person. And so it was an interesting mix between these like softer moments and then like the chaos of me being on like 120 milligrams of Adderall, trying to keep up with 9 people's order by myself, and being like, all right, what bread do you want? And people being like, oh, wait, melty burn. And I would, use my fingers and count it down. And I think I could do 8 total. And still hold it all in my head, and people would just shake their heads at me, and they're like, how are you doing that? And you don't tell them I'm on government meth. You say, I just love my job. And they, they mostly believe you. Some people are like, oh, okay. They just like wink at you. They know what's up. But I had this, so like you have this at work thing, and then there was this interesting lane of consciousness that opened up whenever I had this group of friends that used to smoke weed at one house at a particular time. It was usually super late at night, and we had a tip jar at Subway, and I would do my best to put on a show or like goof with people or whatever I could do to maybe like soften up the idea of giving me a tip. But I wouldn't push for it. I would joke with my regulars, but if I didn't know you, I wouldn't make it. I wouldn't even mention it unless they asked. And so some nights my friends would show up and throw a couple bucks in, and then some nights I would just have some really nice people who happen to have some extra cash, and I would take all that money and drive to Taco Bell and pick up like 10 bean burritos. And then I would go to the house where everybody was already baked